Hello everyone, nubkeks here. Welcome back to Nub Raids. We finally have the Fragment event calendar for the Timit the Fool fusion, the most hotly anticipated fusion of 2023. And we're going to break it down here in today's video. Basically, we want to see, is this looking really easy, which is probably the only situation where most people are going to even think about doing it. Let's be honest. So let's take a look. Let's see what's going on. First of all, let me get my brush. Here we go. Do we have the right brush? We do. There are 130 fragments. Now, of course, 20 are from leaderboards, so it's more like 110. This seems to be the new normal, and it sucks, actually, 110. The reason this sucks is that before it used to be 115 fragments, and you'd typically be able to skip, like, Summon Rush or Champion Chase. You'd be able to skip one of the shard events, because both of those are giving you 15 fragments. The way this is set up, you can't skip 15 fragments. So you got to basically do both or win a tournament. That's definitely not a reliable strategy, though. So that's not something I typically cover. But I mean, you can consider, I'd say if you want to win a tournament, Ice Golem is often one people don't do too much, which is quite ironic, actually, seeing as it's an insanely good dungeon for gear nowadays with Hydra, and how they've buffed up those sets and they're more relevant. That's a good one to try to win. You could always buy Classic Arena refills and grind it out. That's not a bad one. Or Champion Training. That you have to go. I wouldn't recommend trying to win a Champion Training for some fragments, but it's something you might be able to do. I don't know. Maybe you'll find an easy bracket, but other than that, it's fairly tricky. We'll mention it, but yeah. Let's look at these summoning events first of all. So we have Summon Rush for 15, and then we do have a Champion Chase for 15. We're expecting this to be 2x Sacreds. Let's put in an S. Most likely is what it's going to be. We're not entirely sure. They put in 2x Voids last weekend, which was unexpected. It should have been 2x Sacreds, but they put Voids in there. Most likely it does mean that this is 2x Sacreds, and then it's going to continue on 2x Sacreds, then 2x Voids, then 2x Ancients. So really big gap between the 2x Ancients, but hey, it is what it is. I'd say that's what is likely to happen. Now, I did actually go back and I checked. Shout out to, oh god, I've got a scratch video as well in the background for Dragonair. I was looking at some videos on that. But Briggs, I don't think he showed how much this was, but I think it's like 1250 and then 2,500 points. This was Island fragments, and this was a 2x Sacreds event. And then we had, I did have the video myself, beautiful freeze frame here, which was the Summon Rush, which is 2,150 and 3,000 points. So I'd expect it to be basically the same, right, for these, is what I would think. So I would say for Island, it was looking at this for Summon Rush, this for Champion Chase. So, I mean, in terms of Summon Rush, if you're doing it in Sacreds, that's 4 or 6 Sacreds, basically. And if you're doing it in Champion Chase, that should be in a 2x. Well, in 2x Sacreds, I think it's 280 points on average. So I would say this is roughly like 5 to 9 Sacreds, but that can really vary. Sacreds can vary massively. If you get 2 legendaries, you know, it's going to cut stuff down. But I would say about this. I think worst case scenario for this fusion is most likely to be, I'd say about 15 Sacreds, and you should be fine, honestly. With Champion Chase, you can also obviously summon previous fragments. You could get champion drops from campaign. You can fuse up Broadmaws or something, right? You can do other stuff for that. So that is an option there. And for Summon Rush, you could obviously, you know, supplement it with Void Shards, give you really good bang for your buck there if you want to do that. So there's options in terms of how you do it, but that is roughly speaking what I'd be expecting for shards for this event. And yeah, you're likely to have to do a bit of both. Should we do all of them and skip something else? Maybe. I would actually say the Champion Chase would be probably worth skipping, right? It's 2x Sacreds. You might really like pulling your Sacreds there, but you know, you could save yourself probably on average about 4 Sacreds by just getting the lower thing in Champion Chase. And that's actually quite a lot to save. So it depends. It depends, honestly. It's a bit tricky, this one, to work it out exactly what you should do, but it's something worth considering. I don't think it's super worth skipping the Summon Rush. I think it's actually kind of worthwhile going for it to get lots of extra points early, and then you can skip other events as you go. I think that's probably pretty worthwhile. So there you go. Like it was. Oh, I X'd off the thing. Of course I did. I think it was 10 fragments that were for 3,000. And if that is the case, you know, you could potentially go in and skip 2 dungeon divers. That's pretty worthwhile. There's only 2 dungeon divers. So let's actually touch on that first. Then we'll come back and talk about what to skip. Let's look at these other events. So one thing that's straightforward, artifact enhancement. There's 3. There's quite a lot of those. That might be something you want to skip. Again, the strategy is simple. Save your silver and only upgrade stuff during artifact enhancement. If you're really struggling, you can roll gear up to 8 and sell it off. And that doesn't cost much, and it gives you a slow but steady influx of points. So that's something you can do. Do a bit of a gear cleanse. So we got those happening. I think something else that is nearly always easy is Classic Arena. We've got 2 of those. Those really shouldn't be any stress. So I think they're pretty straightforward. We do have over here, there should be CVC, and the current one was not personal rewards. So I think there's a very good chance that this one will be personal rewards. So if you're doing all these fragments, it would mean that you could summon Timit during CVC. That might be something valuable to consider as well. Is it worth investing all of this stuff just for the sake of 1 legendary during CVC? Probably not. But if you're on the fence about grabbing Timit, and that pushes you over, it's at least worth pointing it out. When we come to the more difficult stuff then, I'd say the most difficult things are dungeon divers are probably the worst thing in the fusions. This first one is actually pretty long, and it overlaps with, it overlaps with Spider, which is pretty great, actually the whole way. And then that should segue straight into Dragon. So there's a really nice overlap there, to be honest. That's good. And Spider is a really easy dungeon to farm. Really easy. So, I mean, it should be it's number 1, it's the fastest dungeon by far. It gives you the most silver, so that's great. Even if you're super stuck, you can come back to stage 10, and stage 10 actually gives you really good points per energy spent. And it's going to be super easy, stage 10. You could do this with almost anything. Like, you know, if you're in a position to consider doing a fusion, you can farm stage 10 Spider extremely fast. So that's something you can do. Obviously, stage 20 should be fairly easy to farm as well. So I think that this makes Dungeon Divers 1 pretty doable. You can get lots of it done with Spider. There's really no harm in farming extra Spider. It's extra silver. You always need more silver. That's kind of a win. So Dungeon Divers 1 doesn't look too bad. You can even finish it off then with Dragon Tournament if you want. The rest of this Dragon Tournament is just sort of floating in the air, so you can do it whenever you want to. That's fine. This Ice Golem Tournament then is basically, again, floating in the air. It's very likely Dungeon Divers actually starts after Ice Golem ends. But this Dungeon Divers will overlap with Fire Knight, which again is pretty good. That's a dungeon people really like to farm. Though it's one of the more difficult ones to farm for sure. But again, you should be able to farm hopefully Fire Knight stage 20 pretty quickly. And you could get that one done reasonably easy. But I do expect that this Dungeon Divers might be a little bit tricky, especially if you're trying to save any energy for possible personal reward CVC. So that's one to watch out for. I'd say this Dungeon Divers could be a bit tricky. We do have a champion training. Let's use a different color for it. Let's use this sort of pinky thing. Champion training then is going on, and we've got another champion training over here. So these are sort of overlapping, and that's where some of the difficulty comes in. I'd say try to get Spider really blasted out. You know, you can actually start it today. Once both events are up, you can start blasting Spider and tomorrow and get pretty far, and then, you know, segue into champion training whenever you want. A little bit energy intensive to get champ training done and dragon done at the same time. So I would say there's a fairly intensive energy expenditure here at the start to get on top of that. Again, it's a bit energy intensive right here to get your Ice Golem tournament done and champion training before you get into Fire Knight, right? Because you might need to farm a lot of dungeon to get Dungeon Divers. So I'd say that this spot right here is pretty energy intensive as well. So you've got 2 energy intensive spots, kind of Thursday, Friday, both weeks. Yeah, it's not the worst time, honestly. That's okay. People hopefully have a little bit more free time at the end of the week. I don't know. Is that true? Am I talking out my arse? Maybe I am. But that's where it looks to be a little bit tricky. On the whole, I think the fusion doesn't look too hard. It's pretty straightforward. Like I said, lots of energy expenditure in these 2 spots, just getting on top of things. But it's kind of straightforward, right? An event starts, finish the event before doing the next one effectively. is what's going on. So I think it doesn't look too bad for old Timit. I will have a showcase on Timit. I think that will be out tomorrow. I think he should be in game right now. No, okay, he's not in game. That's weird. Okay, well, it should be in game very soon. Let me see. The fusion, is this Fragment? No, his Fragment wouldn't be in there. But I think they should be pretty comparable to Island. If you were able to do Island, this shouldn't be too bad. Yeah, here you go. Dungeon Diver starts in 9 minutes. And the champion isn't even in the game, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe I need to restart my game. That's probably what it is. I'll go restart after this. But yeah, I'll have a showcase on him coming tomorrow. Yeah, let me know. What do you think of this? Are you going to go for Timit the Fool, having seen this Fragment event calendar? I think it looks fairly standard to me. I think the biggest question is, honestly, is mostly like, there's a bit of the fusion grind always around champ trainings and dungeon divers. So that's a bit of a grind. And then it's sort of the question of, if this is double sacred summonings, are you willing to invest potentially up to 15 sacred shards to get Timit? That sounds like a bad deal, but bearing in mind you're pulling in like 2x events. The bulk of those shards are coming in 2x sacreds, which isn't so bad. But yeah, you'd have to probably put, I'd be recommending probably putting in 6 sacreds to a summon rush. If they up this could go, let me just mention, it could go as high as 5,000, at which point I think it's a pretty bad deal, right? If this is anything more than 3,000, yeah, well, we'll see. I'll do a video on that probably tomorrow as well, or maybe Saturday. We'll see how it goes. But thank you for watching. Hopefully it was helpful, and I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.